If you just stop for a second right now and look around you, you're surrounded by these incredibly complex foundational organisms.
Plants.
Exactly. Plants. They give us the oxygen we breathe, the food we eat. They're the source for everything from paper to, I don't know, the cotton in our clothes.
Right. And we all know what a plant looks like. You've got the leaves, the stem, the roots.
But that familiar green exterior, it has a complete engineering marvel.
It really does. And in this deep dive, that's what we're doing, a full structural assessment.
Yeah.
We're peeling back the bark, we're analyzing the plumbing, and we're exploring the physics that dictates how a plant gets its shape and, well, how it survives.
Botanists call this phytotomy, right? Plant anatomy.
That's the one. Our goal here is to synthesize the science. We're going from the basic organs we all learn about in school all the way up to some really advanced biophysical mechanisms that control growth.
We've got sources from classic botany texts to, cutting-edge research on cellular mechanics. It's a mission to understand this machinery of life.
Yeah.
It's hidden in plain sight.
Exactly. When you look at any plant, you're really seeing two major systems working together, a bit like the human body.
Whose system?
You've got the root system, which is generally below ground. Its job is anchoring and intake.
And then everything above ground.
That's the shoot system. The stem, leaves, and then the reproductive parts, flowers, fruits, and so on.
And just like our bodies, every single part is highly specialized. It's vital. Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's start at the bottom, literally, with the roots.
Right, so they're so much more than just simple anchors. Their main job for survival is absorption, pulling in water, and essential minerals from the soil.
But the challenge there has to be the surface area, right? How do you maximize your contact with the soil?
Genius engineering, that's how. They solve it with root hairs. These are these microscopic single-cell extensions right near the root tips, and they just dramatically increase the surface area. It lets the plant basically vacuum up moisture and nutrients the main root couldn't get to.
And that's not the whole story. I mean, they often get help, right?
A huge amount of help. It's often enhanced, sometimes even outsourced, through this critical relationship with mycorrhizae fungi.
Ah, the fungus.
The fungus attaches to the roots, acts like an extension of the root system, and it just massively boosts the plant's ability to absorb water and minerals like phosphorus.
So it's a trade deal. The plant's getting all this help. What's the fungus getting out of it?
Sugar. Simple as that. The plant, through photosynthesis in its leaves, provides the fungus with the sugars it needs.
Wow.
And this symbiotic trade is crucial. I mean, without it, many plants just can't thrive or even survive, especially in poor soil. It's an ecological cornerstone.
The partnership really highlights something key. Roots aren't just for stability and water. Some are specialized for storage, like huge energy banks.
Exactly. When you have roots that are modified to store a lot of starch, we call them root tubers.
And these are things we eat.
Oh, absolutely. They're essential food sources all over the world. Think of cassava, which is also called manioc or sweet potatoes. They have fundamentally shaped human agriculture.
And we also see some really spectacular structural adaptations, especially where anchoring is a huge problem.
Yes, like in mangroves.
The mangroves have those stilt or prop roots. They look like flying buttresses on a cathedral.
They do, and they provide that crucial stability in shifting mud. Or if you go to a tropical forest, you'll see massive, flat buttress roots spreading out from fig trees.
They look almost decorative.
But their purpose is pure stability. Tropical soil is often shallow, so the trees need these wide bases to keep from getting toppled by the wind.
Okay, what I find incredible is the idea of roots growing against gravity. How does a plant get air when its roots are underwater?
That's where you get these amazing aerial roots called pneumatophores.
Snorkels.
They're essentially snorkels.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plants like the bald cypress, they grow these roots straight up out of the waterlogged soil just to exchange gas. It's a perfect example of negative geotropism, growing away from gravity, a total reversal of normal root behavior, all just to breathe.
So the roots have anchored the plant, hauled in the resources. Now we need the infrastructure to get those resources up to the solar panels. Let's move above ground to the stems.
The stem is the architectural frame. It elevates the leaves to catch sunlight, and it provides the transport network. Structurally, we talk about nodes.
That's where the leaves attach.
Right, and internodes, which are the segments of stem between those nodes.
And the stem is also the engine for future growth, the bud.
Exactly. You've got the axillary or lateral bud and the little angle above a leaf. It has the potential to become a new branch, maybe a flower.
And then the one at the very tip.
The terminal bud, that's what drives primary growth. It pushes the whole sheet upward, helping a young plant elongate and compete for light.
But stems, just like roots, have found clever ways to specialize. We have to talk about underground stems. This is where it gets confusing for a lot of people.
It is a common point of confusion. We distinguish between them based on where they are.
Okay.
Stolons run above the ground, like the runners on a strawberry plant.
Used for propagation.
Exactly. But rhizomes are underground horizontal stems. Think of ginger or galangal, that whole piece you cook with. That's technically a modified stem, a rhizome.
Okay, so that brings up the big question. If cassava is a root tuber, because it comes from the root, what is a potato?
The potato is the classic example of a storage stem,
The stem.
specifically a stem tuber. Sometimes it's classified as a bulb, along with onions or hyacinths. The difference is critical. Potatoes develop from underground stems, rhizomes, that swell with starch. Cassava develops from the root itself. Structure defines its identity.
That clears it up perfectly. Okay, let's go up again to the solar panels, the leaves.
Leaves are the main photosynthetic organs for most plants, beautifully designed to maximize light capture. Internally, they have this robust system of veins.
Which is just the plumbing from the stem extended out.
Exactly, bringing water and nutrients throughout the leaf. This is where the magic happens, converting light into chemical energy.
But again, the rule here seems to be specialization. What happens when a plant gives a leaf a totally different job?
You see this incredible diversity. It's all driven by evolutionary need. For example, in a desert, you need defense.
So leaves become spines.
Right, like on a cactus, to stop animals from getting to the water stored inside.
And for plants that need to climb to get light, they develop tendrils.
Modified leaves, or sometimes stems, that coil around things for support. You see it on pea plants.
And then some are just for storage.
Yeah, they become thick and fleshy and succulents to hold water. And some, like the bright red parts of a poinsettia, those aren't flowers.
They're leaves.
They're specialized leaves called bracts, designed just to attract pollinators to the tiny actual flower in the center.
It's just astounding. The same basic structures, root, stem, leaf, can morph into such different things.
Okay, let's drill down now to the architecture that links them all. The three major tissue systems.
Right. Every organ we've talked about, root, stem, and leaf, is built from the same three interconnected tissue systems: dermal, vascular, and ground.
The dermal system is the skin, the outer protective layer.
It's the plant's shield. In young, soft plants, it's the epidermis. But in older, woody plants, the epidermis cracks and gets replaced by the much tougher periderm.
Which is part of the bark.
Exactly. The bark includes that protective periderm and the old, non-functional layers of phloem. It's the whole outer covering.
Next up is the internal transport system, the vascular system. This is a two-way superhighway.
Made of two crucial tissues. You have the xylem, which moves water and dissolved minerals up from the roots to the rest of the plant.
And then the food delivery service.
The phloem, which carries sugars, the products of photosynthesis, from the leaves down to every cell that needs energy, including the roots. Let's stay on the vascular system for a minute because it holds some really surprising secrets. Think about, well, the cost of your orange juice today.
Yes. That leads us directly to one of the most devastating plant diseases out there, citrus greening, or huanglongbing.
It's changed the entire citrus industry. The costs are astronomical, and the oranges are green and bitter.
Inedible. And the reason it's so destructive ties directly back to the vascular system. It's caused by a tiny bacterium spread by an insect.
What does that bacterium target?
It infects the phloem, it clogs up the phloem, which means the sugars made in the leaves can never reach the fruit or the roots.
So the fruit starves.
The fruit starves, it stays green, and eventually the whole tree dies because its root system is starved of energy. It's a perfect, tragic illustration of how vital that phloem transport is.
On a lighter note,
Okay.
maple syrup. When you tap a maple tree, where is that sap coming from?
It comes from the xylem.
The xylem.
Mm.
But that's just supposed to be water and minerals.
It's highly counterintuitive. Maple sap is mostly water, but it also has hormones, minerals, and about 2 to 3% sugar that has leaked across from the phloem next to it. The tree is so desperate to move water in the early spring that we can basically siphon off this slightly sugary water supply before the leaves even come out.
And one last thing on transport. If you ever see aphids all clustered on the underside of a leaf.
It's not because they like the shade.
No, they're tapping directly into that sugar-rich phloem, which in many plants is closer to the lower surface of the leaf. They know exactly where the buffet is.
Our final tissue system is the ground tissue system. This is basically everything else.
The filler.
The filler, the bulk, the primary site for storage, support, and in leaves. Most of the photosynthesis happens here.
And the most important cell type here is the parenchyma cell.
Yes, these are the versatile filler cells, but their key feature, the real insight, is their regenerative capacity.
That's the game changer.
It is. Parenchyma cells can stay metabolically active, and they can divide throughout the plant's entire life. This makes them absolutely critical for healing wounds. When you take a cutting from a plant to propagate it, it's the parenchyma cells that organize and start building new roots.
So moving on to growth itself, let's talk of meristems, the regions of active cell division. We've established plants grow in 2 dimensions.
They do. When a plant gets longer, taller, or its roots go deeper, that's primary growth. It's driven by the apical meristems at the very tips of the shoots and roots.
But woody plants also have to grow wider.
And that's secondary growth, which is driven by lateral meristems.
These are the 2 that produce wood. First, the vascular cambium.
The vascular cambium produces new functional tissue. It adds girth inward as secondary xylem, which is wood, and outward as secondary phloem.
And second, the cork cambium.
Which is necessary because as the trunk expands, the old outer layers split. The cork cambium continuously produces the tough, protective periderm to replace the layers that are shed as bark.
So if we look at a cross-section of a tree trunk, we see 2 different kinds of wood.
You do. In the center, you have the heartwood. This is old, dense xylem. It's no longer functional for water transport, but it provides incredible structural support. It's what we value as lumber.
And surrounding that.
Surrounding that is the sapwood. That's the newer, active xylem tissue that is still transporting water and minerals up the tree.
This precise separation functional sapwood on the outside, non-functional heartwood in the middle, is exactly why the act of girdling or ring barking is so fatal.
It's the tree's Achilles heel. Ultimate vulnerability. Girdling is when you remove a complete strip of bark all the way around the trunk.
And if you go deep enough.
If you go deep enough to strip away the phloem and that vascular cambium, you've severed the food supply chain. The roots, even though they're perfectly healthy, can't get any sugar from the leaves. They starve, and the tree dies from the bottom up.
It's a harsh bit of knowledge, but it's used by foresters for thinning, or even by orchardists to make fruit bigger because the sugar builds up above the ring.
Right. But it's also done accidentally by beavers or insects. And of course, that secondary growth process is what gives us tree rings.
The story of a tree's life.
The lighter, wider rings are the fast growth in spring and early summer. The darker, narrower rings are the slower growth of late summer and fall. That pair equals 1 year.
Okay. Everything we've discussed so far, structure, tissues, growth, it's mostly been through the lens of genetic control, the idea that genes are a perfect blueprint.
Right.
But here's where we make the true deep dive. We're moving into advanced biophysics, which completely changes how we understand plant shape or morphogenesis.
We are absolutely challenging that blueprint idea.
Yeah.
The modern view is that plant shape is not just encoded. It is an emergent, self-organized physical and mechanical process.
So plants are what's called active matter.
Yes, they're systems that are constantly taking in energy and dissipating it to drive change and deformation.
And the energy source for this physical growth is water, powered by the turgor mechanism.
Exactly. Picture a balloon inside a rigid box. Cells actively pump solutes inside to maintain a high concentration, high osmolarity,
Which pulls water in.
draws water inward, generating this huge hydrostatic pressure turgor pressure pushing against the rigid cellulose cell wall. Growth can only happen when that wall yields and expands irreversibly under that pressure.
This sounds less like biology and more like hydraulic engineering. How do scientists even model this constant battle between water rushing in and the wall resisting?
They use these sophisticated models that show growth is a constant, delicate negotiation. Essentially, growth rates depend on 2 things: how fast the water is coming in, the flux, and how willing the cell wall is to yield to the pressure.
So if the wall is too strong, no growth. If the water supply drops.
No growth. The pressure falls below the minimum needed to deform the wall.
This leads to probably the most provocative idea in this whole discussion. That plants are always actively evading balance.
Precisely. Growing cells are non-equilibrium systems. They are constantly using energy just to maintain a state of hydraulic imbalance. But here is the truly counterintuitive discovery.
Okay.
Because actively growing regions are yielding and expanding so rapidly, They actually have slightly lower turgor pressure than their surroundings.
Which means they act as a drain, a sink.
They act as powerful water sinks. They hydraulically pull water from their neighboring, less active cells, and experiments have confirmed this. It's a fierce hydraulic competition.
Wow.
In a rapidly developing organ, this stealing of water can be so strong that cells right at the boundary can physically shrink. And that influences their identity and suppresses their own growth. It's a dynamic physical war for resources playing out at a microscopic level to determine the final shape.
We went from talking about simple root hairs and plumbing to realizing that plant growth is a relentless physical negotiation.
It is. We now understand that the plant is only alive because it is never truly at rest.
So what does this all mean for you?
I think you should reflect on this. If a plant ever reached perfect mechanical or hydraulic equilibrium, if the pressure, water flow, and wall resistance all balanced out, it would stop growing. It would die.
So life exists in the imbalance.
Plant life exists in this perpetual, actively managed state of physical imbalance. The next time you see a massive tree, understand that its size and its longevity are not just from a genetic blueprint. They are the result of an ongoing, successful negotiation between relentless mechanical forces and water fluxes. It's never reaching balance, it's constantly overcoming it.